in June. They're in the REC, which is the Retail Energy Code. They are introducing basically a new role. It's a new role in the REC.
Yeah.
Which is called SIP. SIP, Safe Isolation Provider.
Hello, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. You've got myself here and you've got Dave on another amazing, exciting CEF Tech Talking podcast. And today we really are talking solutions, aren't we, mate?
We are big time talking solutions. We have Ed with us.
Yes, and Ed, who are you and who do you work for?
So I am the Metering Compliance Manager at ACoole Electrical Limited.
Okay. Now, I've done a little bit of chatting to these people, and these people have got in where no one else has really gone before.
What was the problem, and what did you solve?
To boldly go where no one has gone
What's
before.
he talking about? He knows what I don't know here.
I think you're egging it up a bit there. So the problem is isolating the main supply at domestic and commercial properties. Now,
You mean pulling the main fuse?
pulling the main fuse.
No, hold on a minute, because you can't pull a main fuse.
Well, you can. You just don't tell anybody.
Now, you see, what I always used to say was, and this is now supposedly I used to say, when I got there and I realised that I needed to get hold of them tails, you weren't allowed to cut the tails. That's against the law, because they used to say, no, you can't do that, extraction and blah, blah, blah of energy. But Dave, can you believe it? Every single time I went to do it, it was already cut before I got there.
That's amazing.
It's funny that I see it all the time.
Now, there's a reason for doing this, because you can't work safe, can you, with that without getting...
Yeah, so the problem we've got, obviously, if you need to change a customer's fuse board, consumer unit, or the big emphasis now is on low and zero carbon technology. So
lots of renewables.
EV, solar, air source, heat pumps.
That's a big one, isn't it?
Big one, yeah. It's all come to the forefront now. And the problem is now is, I mean, it has been a problem for years, but it's become a bigger problem, should we say, that it's almost next to impossible, really. Or it is possible, but the time scales involved make it really unachievable. It's hard to get the main supplies de-energized so that you can work on it safely.
Okay.
So the problem you've got is you're not allowed to pull the main fuse unless you're an accredited meter installer.
Yeah.
You can get the energy supplier to that property.
Yeah. What's the chance of doing that?
Some DNOs are giving latitude, aren't they, and allowing that to happen to
some are,
but it's not. It's very sporadic.
But and it comes down to a DNO, so it's a postcode lottery. Then isn't it?
It
comes down
and
to
you've
whether
still got
you're
to
in there or
contact them.
not.
Even if they give permission, they've still got to be. You've still got to get through, which is not easy.
What we find is that some DNOs do, most don't. I would say.
Yeah.
But what we find is that the timescales, then, if they don't, for example, where do you go?
Yeah, because contacting. I mean, the problem is I've got a job next week. I need to go and install a consumer unit, tie into the tails, because I don't want to touch the existing supply or the existing installation. So I'm going to put some Henny blocks in the tails, and I'm going to put a little unit that looks after me. My air source heat pump, my PV, my whatever is totally independent to the rest of it. Yeah. Now, to do so, I've got to ring up the DNO and say, or the energy provider, and say, I want that isolated because it's got to work in it safely. What's the chance they're going to want to be there on the same day?
On the same day, and you can't do it any earlier. You can't disadvantage the customer.
No,
it's
you
not going to be wanting out,
yeah.
Are they?
It's the dilemma that's been
so
facing the
we have a problem, Ed.
We do.
We need a solution. If only somebody would come up with it.
Yeah. Someone will have a solution. No. So at ACoole Electrical, we have the solution. We are an approved and accredited meter equipment manager, MEM, which allows us to work on the electrical side. We do dual fuel, which is gas and electric.
Okay.
We do have smart meter engineers who do both.
Right.
But so we're an approved meter installer, basically. We can work on the
So that allows you to work on the network then, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It allows us to work on the DNO and the meter. But the thing is, you still need permission from the energy supplier to that meter to work on the meter. So the solution to this problem is, in June, they're in the REC, which is the Retail Energy Code. They are introducing basically a new role. It's a new role in the REC, which is called SIP, SIP, Safe Isolation Provider.
Yeah.
That comes into effect. Well, it's an implementation stage, basically from the 30th of June this year. So from the 30th of June, an approved a MEM, which is ourselves,
you guys,
meter installer, we can basically apply to become a SIP, and then we can work on any meter position, any supplier's meter.
So it gets out of that hole of having to ask.
I know the job's coming up a week on Wednesday. I book you.
Yeah, so you could contact us. We've got fairly decent, we've got installers ready around the country sort of to take up this work, because obviously as of the 30th of June, it's in theory it's going to go live quite big. So we've got contracts, should we say, that we're sort of putting in place now, ready for that start.
So Ed, what are you going to do? You're going to turn up, take out the main fuse, sit and wait for me to do my consume unit, and then power it up again?
That is an option, but unlikely. What we would look to do is install either a double pole, triple pole,
that's what we want.
Isolator.
Yeah.
So we've got various different ways of doing it. Traditionally, normal domestic property, you're looking at a double pole isolator.
Yeah, you're right.
And that would be installed in the meter box or at the meter position next to the meter, and then
you bugger off.
Then forever.
We're gone. Yeah,
that's
in
forever
a way.
isolatable then.
That's and then anybody, electrician, even the customer, if they wanted to de-energise for an emergency, if God forbid if something was wrong with the fuse board or consume unit, they could de-energise and it's safe. So
that's what you want.
Why wasn't that
goal.
done 50 years ago?
Right, I'll tell you why it weren't done 50 years ago, because 50 years ago, they never thought we were going to be doing what we are with our installations. 50 years ago, you only had a cooker, a couple of lights and a couple of sockets. That's all you had. Now, also, the fact that we are installing so much more regularly than ever before. If we were only doing this once every blue moon, it wouldn't be a problem, would it?
No, it wouldn't.
But you think about the amount of times we're seeing now the electrical installations change. They're changing this year. Next year I want to add something else in. Oh, you need a new fuse board because you've added this lot in over the last 4 years. You've added all this in. We are constantly changing our installations across the UK. There's about 40 million properties across the UK, either commercial or domestic and stuff like that. And they're existing housing stock. Now, they started off probably built 100 years ago, and we've done loads to them over that lifespan. And that's why we've seen now the need to have regular, readily accessible devices. That means we can isolate our installations.
Because new installations are tending to come with isolators now, aren't they? There is a
historically, So new builds. What we're seeing now is, having done metering for a number of years, new installations will have an isolator as part of that install.
Yeah. Again, I think that depends where you are in the UK, you know.
It can do. Yeah. It can do. Yeah. I would always say historically, from whenever I've done new connections, it's always been an isolator.
This service that you're offering will come at a cost, though.
There is a cost,
cost of the job.
I'm not here to speak about the cost.
No.
It's not good because we're not talking money.
We're not talking money.
I'm just weighing it up.
I think
option for contractors now.
I think you just build it in. If it was me and I was let's say I'm doing an EV charge point and I can't go in the old existing. So what's my options? I've got to either break the seal and do it myself and probably not do it properly, or I put a bit more on the job and get these guys to come and do it, or providers like yourself to come and do it. It's for me, it's a no-brainer.
Presumably you've worked out that it's a viable cost that people will use, otherwise you wouldn't have a business, would you?
It is. It is a viable cost. It's nothing that's gonna stop someone getting a job, if that makes sense. But it's required.
Without a doubt.
I've come from a metering background, so I'm not an electrician.
We kept it so quiet for so long, didn't we?
So I've come from a metering background. So I go back I would say that, for example, the meter box or the meter board.
Yeah.
It's for boards equipment only. It's for metering equipment only.
We get that a lot.
You've probably seen it a lot. EV.
They want to put their little
everything's going in there now, and it's got a bit out of hand.
Yeah.
Smart meters. Some people hate them. Love or loathe them, sort of thing. They've got bigger. They've got smaller. They are what they are.
Yeah.
But the isolator, they're not a huge piece of equipment. We can supply a surge isolator with surge built in as well. So that.
So what type? We put a class 2, type 2,
yeah, type 2,
type 2 in there as well.
So it's in there.
That's
So
good. So you got a four-way device.
Most of the installation.
That's clever.
Yeah. So the type 2 surge.
You cover the whole installation, didn't
Well, you would unless it's a very big installation with long cable runs.
Multiple.
So with a long cable again, so that comes with I believe, and I'd have to double check this, but I believe it comes with a C80 double pole.
Right.
MCB.
Yeah, right. So you're putting that in to protect the device.
So then if you've got a longer run as well, I think.
Yeah.
So it's an industry, or it's a part of the industry that has been sort of overlooked for years.
So there's always been that gap. I mean, but there is. I say gap. When I've been dealing with DNOs and asking them to do this, there has been a cost associated with it. So you can go direct to them and ask them. And again, you're on their terms. So you really are. It's about when they can fit you in, not for your convenience at all. It's very much about them.
Would you say the DNOs are happy about the innovation like this?
I think they are happy with the concept. I believe it's the implementation and the assurity that the people who do this work will be qualified and experienced to do it.
You have to go round and complete your qualifications, do you? Because I know one of your colleagues, Max. I had the ability to teach Max for a couple of years back at Bedford College. Max was there.
Brilliant. You wouldn't let you supply, would you?
I was there. Max is a fine individual. Absolutely superb.
Cut that out.
Max, if you're listening, I don't mean any of it. You're absolutely superb, Max. Max came through, and Max would have to complete a qualification. Although you're an electrician, you still have to go and complete a qualification because it's all about the network, isn't it? About the dangers of the network.
This qualification, it would be completely separate. I've come from a dual fuel metering background, so I did an apprenticeship in dual fuel metering, smart metering. So that's electric and gas.
Yeah.
The electric phase or the electric side of that was probably 6 weeks worth of training, but you learn all about the network side. You don't really worry about the customer side.
No,
you know what to look for on a you look for defects, shall we say? But you're not there to fix it.
If you found a defect, though, what do? Do you progress that further?
So so if you found a defect on, say, a customer's consuming it, or there was an issue with it, you'd put an isolator in,
right?
And then you'd leave them some safety paperwork for their electrician to fix it, because we're not there to fix it. Okay. So that's where. I suppose the isolator is quite important.
The bit there, you're making it no less safe. In fact, you're making it safer because they can isolate.
Well, we're giving an electrician the ability to work on it safely.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
With an isolator, it's they're not.
There's a guy.
They're a simple little thing, but they enable so much.
They really do.
You talk about electricians.
Yeah. About 10 years ago, I was talking to a guy from HSE, and I said to him, this problem, and he was their electrical expert at HSE, a guy called John Chamberlain, fantastic guy he was. And I said to him, so let's talk about a scenario here, which is I don't isolate and I try and work on the tails live and I get an electric shock. He says, we'll do you then, so we could prosecute you. I said, but Bolden, the ultimate then is I do break the seal and I do remove it, and then I'm being told by the DNO I could be prosecuted by them for removing a fuse and working on network, or they could say they've tried to extract energy without paying for it or whatever. And he said, that's less likely to happen. He said, but we will definitely do you if you get electric shock and die from it or something like that.
Yeah.
So although there is always the threat there, I haven't heard of many people done for removing a fuse. But I do know that people have had a few letters from people say we've been to a property and it's been proven that you were blah 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 and stuff like that. But definitely trying to find a right way of doing it, because that's what it needs.
This is an elegant, simple solution. Everybody has their role,
and
absolutely. It means in the future this will become a diminishing problem.
Ed, just confirm for us. So this, around about June, we're going to see this new SIP. Was that
SIP? Yeah, Safe Isolation Provider.
Safe Isolation Provider. That's a new concept that's coming out. Yeah, and in order to get access to these people, I need to, as an installer, come and find people like you.
That's
Is there going to be a register of SIPs or something like that?
So. We don't actually know. It's
June. It's May now.
It's only around the corner. And believe it or not, the concept of SIP has been, or Safe Isolation Provider. This change proposal, as it is called, going through the retail energy code. It's only been going on for around about 18 months, so it's quite it's a slow moving ship, should we say?
In a past life, I was involved with the Energy Networks Association, looking at a scheme that would allow registered contractors or people within a registered contractor to pull a main fuse. And we got so close. But right at the 11th hour, the Energy Networks Association decided, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to remove it and do it our own way. But I think since smart metering, it opened up the network so you can have different providers from all over the place. And you could have one meter could be with one provider, then the meter next door could be with someone totally different. And
absolutely,
again, it opened it all up across the UK. So now we're seeing the need for people to access the network more readily than ever before. But to do it safely is the thing, isn't it? And this is what these guys are doing.
It is that safe way of doing it. If, for example, there will be situations where we are unable to fit an isolator. We can do.
What would that be? Some of them. What would they be, Ed?
Just not necessarily technical, but more for lack of space.
Right.
Sometimes you get meter positions. There's some meter boxes out there. You've probably seen them. They're really slim. They're just a nightmare to work on. Those sort of scenarios, sometimes there's not enough room, or sometimes there's already consumer units blocked around everything. There's just not enough room to get an isolator in.
Got ya.
In that scenario, what we can do is what we call an in-day de-energize and re-energize. So we'll attend first thing in the morning, de-energize the supply. So that would basically remove the fuse, take the fuse out of the carrier, put it all back together, seal it back up again so that meter, everything is all safe,
de-energized,
fully de-energized. And then we'll go back sort of on the way home sort of thing, if that makes sense. Last job of the day, and re-energize it. But that would be, we'd have to liaise with whoever's on site to make that happen.
Yeah, because they might have to do some testing.
It's not our preferred solution, but it does.
It's an option.
It would get us out of trouble, should we say, if there wasn't the facility to put an isolator in.
Something that Dave and I have been going around the country talking about quite a lot, and we're not the only ones, quite a few people are these circulating or diverted neutral currents. So this is where there could be a diverted neutral current in the network, and that's coming up on one installation via the earth paths. Are you guys testing for this sort of thing when you're going round? Or were you trained to look for diverted neutral currents?
Aware of it, more personally aware of it, not necessarily as an industry. I'm
just thinking, Dave, that every time these guys are going in, that would be a great opportunity for them to do a test.
They could do a test. You could get very quickly. You'd get some information about how wide.
Yeah, it's not something that I'm aware of.
For SIP, part of SIP.
No, definitely not for SIP. SIP has been is being implemented with as narrow a scope as possible.
The framework's very narrow.
The reason being is because if you start to widen it out, the responsibilities then widen, and then you're getting close to them being a MEM, which is a meter equipment manager. So they don't want to. They need to keep the two separate. They want to keep the scope, and it's then the legal framework behind that, the legal responsibilities behind that.
Yeah, the licensing of who can or can't work on the network.
So, for example, as a SIP, if you was to go to an installation, de-energize, effectively, it's like having a power cut. Nothing else. The house doesn't know anything other than that. It doesn't know. Really, the meter doesn't. It's just powered down and it's powered back up again. Sometimes with smart metering, for example, if it lost its connection to the network, then that wouldn't be the SIP's fault.
Got you.
Because it's all the SIP is doing is removing that main fuse and putting that main fuse back in again. They've not done anything there to influence the meter not connecting to the network.
Absolutely.
So in terms of legal it gets a bit complicated. It is, So there's a lot going on behind the scenes with regard to who's responsible for what, who can do which.
Just to go back to Darren's question, which I sort of jumped in on the side of. How will we access you? How will contractors be able to find their local organisation doing?
I think it will be as simple as a Google search.
Google search for SIP.
Well, SIP operator or isolator installer. It's
and is there
search
any,
for an electrician?
Is there any quality assurance thing? What association? Who's
you've got to do qualifications, haven't you? You've got to get training.
So qualifications. So all of our engineers are the qualified engineers through whichever scheme they've done. There's various different providers who can do smart metering qualification.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, it's smart metering qualification.
Okay.
Although they're not actually a smart meter installer.
No.
Got you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
However, our own engineers, for example, we use an external training centre who train, assess our engineers to EUSR, which is Energy and Utility Skills Register.
Oh, I know of it.
So EUSR, they're quite heavy in the smart metering world.
Yeah.
They have, I don't really know how it works, but once you've done your assessments, then you get your EUSR card. It's I think they are closely affiliated to such as like CSCS and that sort of thing.
They are, yeah.
So
they're the utility side of what we do.
The utility side,
yeah.
So you get your card, or it's actually virtual. It's like an app now on your phone, and you can see all of your qualifications and what you're authorised to work
for those of you listening, it's like our CSS card or ACS card. That's what it's on about. So we've got equivalent of that for the installation side of things. You're talking about it from utilities network. Yeah, I know the framework. I know the skills provider there. So it's the utilities version of what we do. That's what it's simply stated. Yeah. So all your guys are registered
again. So the scope on that will be utilities based. It won't be. There's no blending of the scheme, if that makes sense.
That's good. That is very interesting. It's nice to know. That's something. So for you listening to this one, look out, because if you're currently installing things and you're wondering how do you get over this, June, it's a SIP operator or safe isolation provider.
Yeah.
So that's what you're looking for. In around June, they're going to become available. But these guys are doing it now. I have no doubt that you're willing to help people if they get in contact with you guys. So they can do it. How do they find out about you?
Just Google ACoole Electrical.
Okay.
We will
be up there.
More than happy
on the doorstep.
And you might even get Ed.
You never know.
Ed, hands, knees, foot.
I've heard them all. Don't worry.
And knees and bumps the baby.
Yeah. But thank you very much for your time today. It's absolutely brilliant. Thank you, the listener, for taking the chance to listen to this one. This has been a really good one, a really interesting one for us to allow you guys to work a little bit safer out there. Don't forget, we believe that every single one of you deserves the right to go home at the end of a day's work. Something like this is probably going to increase that opportunity to do so. So be safe out there, take care, and we look forward to listening to, or having you listen to, another one of these Tech Talking podcasts. Take care. Bye-bye.